we'll have a look at the Magus card now. Here it is. Um, the important thing about it is at the bottom it has the description of Magus, and then it has the letter Beth, which is the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet. We have the symbol Mercury on the bottom there as well. So Mercury and the letter Beth, which means a house, and on the top we have the number 1. So it's the first card. Now, in many tarot decks of the Thoth tarot deck, you'll find that there are 3 Magus cards, 3 slightly different cards. This is the one you keep. Take the other 2, put them back in the box, and put them out of the way. You don't use them. This is the card. You can see they're slightly inferior to the design that is represented in this Magus card. So this is the one that you must keep. The other ones just put aside. They're useful for reference, but don't use them in tarot deck. There's only 78 cards in a tarot deck, not 80. Not 80. All right. So that's the important thing. Now, what does Crowley say about the Mercury card itself, the Magus card? The Magus represents a magician, basically. Okay, so he's the expression of knowledge and experience. Crowley actually calls this card in the Book of Thoth. He calls it the Juggler. This is the fascinating thing. The second sentence, he says, the ideas connected with this symbol are so complex and so multifarious that it seems better to attach to this general description certain documents which bear upon different aspects of this card. Now the reason is that the Fool is actually, the Magus. the Magus is actually a different expression of the Fool card. So you've got this, in some senses, they are the same thing, except of course the Fool is silent and the Magus is communication. And then later on he says, it represents the world, which we've already discussed. In brief, he is the Son, the manifestation in the act of the idea of the Father. He is the male correlative of the male High Priestess. And then he mentions the Sun and the Moon, and the Lingam and the Yoni. So again we come back to this idea of sex magic that's mentioned first time in the full card. But in the full card they're conjoined. You have the Sun over the genitals, and the genitals area is related to the Moon and Yesod. So there's kind of overlapping, unifying kind of force that is going on. So he says later, Mercury represents action in all forms and phases. He is the fluidic basis of all transmission of activity, and on the dynamic theory of the universe, he is himself the substance thereof. So he is the expression, and he is the being at the same time as well. We also have this idea of the word that continues with this, and it talks about wisdom and truth, wisdom and folly, truth and falsehood. This idea that and if you remember, I was mentioned in the full card that the full card is basically good, even if you can't handle it. It's the essence of unity and its perfection. So from above the card, you can see that there is the second emanation of the crown, and he doesn't quite have the crown there, but what he does have, he has the uraeus above his head, and also he has the katakoros as well. And there is this element of mathematics, and the 2 of discs also appears. Now, why would the 2 of discs appear? Because that's the earth element, isn't it? You have to go fire, water, air, and earth. Well, it's because it's to do with the 2 and Hukma, and that's the manifestation. And if I remember, I said in the verse that he says, "Create freely, absorb joyously, divide intently, consolidate completely." This is a paraphrase of Liber Magi VV, verses 7 to 10. With a wand createth he, with a cup preserveth he, with a dagger destroyeth he, with a coin redeemeth he. So basically the Fool now has all the 4 elements present in a kind of slightly unmanaged form to do with being at the same time. So what is the principal characteristic of this card? And it's to do with Tahuti or Thoth, because he has the head of the ibis, and the ibis is stationary, and there's no movement there. So he talks about movement all over the place, and it's everything, but actually is the expression of stillness at the same time as well. It's quite extraordinary. Now there are problems with this card because I think Crowley got a bit confused as to which card he was probably going to use, and he probably wrote it and things changed anyway. But there's much about, he has the symbols within the card itself as well. And there is also the ape of Thoth in there as well. So why is there this confusion? I think in essence, he's conveying this idea that the problem that the spiritual master, he's expressing his knowledge at this level, and his students are receiving the knowledge at this level or some other level, and there's always a mismatch between the two things. There's something is lost in translation. There's that great film, wasn't there, about the Bill, what's his name, he went to he was in Japan and he had this all kind of communication problems and everything else. It kind of expresses that kind of thing. I haven't really gone into the actual description cards because there's one point it says at the end, the present card endeavours to represent all the above conceptions, yet no true image is possible at all. For firstly, all images are necessarily false as such. This is coming to the doctrine of insubstantiality and the idea of Maya as well, illusion and deception. Nothing is stationary, nothing is straight. It's the ability of words to distort and to give false impressions. You only have to listen to politicians to know how this happens. So this is the card, it's the expression of the self from the fall. It's the expression of knowledge, it's the expression of the entirety of the four elements and the expression of the world. And the world is Thelema, and the world here is the highest self.